What if the things you're trying to call into your life are already there, but you just can't see them yet? Today, my guest is Brian Trzaskos, a somatic science expert and co author of Manifestation for Dummies. Brian has trained over 75,000 professionals and has spent decades blending neuroscience, somatics, mindfulness, and healing practices to help people transform limiting beliefs, chronic pain, and emotional patterns from the inside out. Today, we're peeling back the woo-woo layers of manifestation and distilling it down to natural laws that you can work with. So, like I said at the beginning, I want to start off today's conversation by planting this seed. What if the things you are trying to call into your life are already there, but you just can't see them? Brian is going to dig into this thought with us on this conversation today, so let's dive right into it. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, the show where we tackle the taboo topics of money and manifestation. I'm your host, Jenny Schultz, former 9-to-5 grinder who ditched the status quo and went all in on creating a life I love. Yes, I use manifestation. Yes, I took action. And yes, I created a 7-figure net worth before turning 40. Every week, I'll bring you inspiring stories with money mavens and manifestation masters. From learning how to make more, save more, and grow your wealth to unlocking the power of manifesting your dream life. I am so excited to play in this space with you. Let's jump into creating a life you love. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, Brian.
Thanks so much, Jen. I'm loving being here. I've been listening to your podcast, enjoying your conversations with your guests, and I'm so excited to be here with you.
I am excited to hear that. And like I said, I love having guests on the podcast because I go into them with such intrigue, especially when intake forms come in through yours that say, I am a somatic science expert. Things like that. I'm just like, oh, I have to talk to this person and delve more into their world. So I would love for you to share with the listeners just a little bit about who you are and what your story is.
Oh, yes. Thanks so much. So yeah, my name is Brian Trzaskos, and I come out of a history of actually physical rehabilitation. I'm a physical therapist by training decades ago, like over 30 years ago now. And, as I was getting into my really early life as a physical therapist, I had a blessing to work at a really highly world-renowned rehabilitation center for people who are rehabilitating from spinal cord and brain injuries. And I was working with people who are healing from brain injuries. And one of the things that I got to experience when I was working with these folks is that some people would heal when they weren't supposed to, and other people didn't heal when they were supposed to. And by I mean supposed to, the doctors, they give a prognosis based on what all the conditions are for the patients. And so I got to experience a lot of what you call kind of like miraculous healings with people, but also equally non-miraculous healings. And I really started to wonder, like, why do some people heal and other people don't heal? And that kind of got me into wanting to understand more about the interactions between what we call now body-mind or mind-body. Right? Because actually, we're holistic beings, right? We're always living on these 3 planes of existence simultaneously. We are living in a body, we have a mind, we have experiences or connection to spirit in some way. So we're living on all 3 planes. And I realized that a lot of times, at least in healing practices, that in the West anyway, we lean really heavily into the body focus. Like, we got to heal the body. Like, Western medicine is really good at healing the body. And trained as a physical therapist, that's what I was trained to do. But I realized that when I actually met my patients holistically, body, mind, and spirit, they actually had what we might call more miraculous or holistic healings. And I really understood at that point in time kind of how to manifest health, how to help people manifest really great health. And manifesting health is the same pathway, it's the same networks, the same process as manifesting anything that you want in your life, whether it's manifesting better relationships or whether it's manifesting more wealth or money in your life. It's all the same processes underneath. I just happen to come into it through the process of manifesting health through holistic healing methods.
I love that. I love how the paths of curiosity lead people down, in your case, important research and roles that you've been doing. So what are some of the things that you learned and uncovered then as you went down that path?
Probably one of the most important early things that I learned is when I started studying people who healed, especially when they weren't supposed to, compared to people who weren't healing, is whether people realized it or not, the people who were healing spontaneously and were manifesting health were following a certain set of guidelines. And they might not have realized that they were following those guidelines or not. But after studying hundreds and hundreds of cases of people, I started to put together an understanding that, where there are like universal laws, universal, what we call natural laws or natural processes, that if you come in line with those things, you naturally actually come in alignment with the way that the universe creates everything, which is manifestation, right? The universe is manifesting itself all of the time. And if you actually start to study, I actually got pulled into a lot of Eastern philosophies, right? So I trained in traditional Chinese medicine practices, Qigong energy practices, those kinds of things. So I actually have a pretty deep understanding in how traditional Chinese medicine and Eastern practices look at how nature works, how nature manifests things all of the time, brought that together with my Western knowledge, understanding that if you come in alignment with natural laws, you can manifest anything that you want in your life. And people were doing that whether they realized it or not. And so once I started studying people, I was like, oh my God, if you actually just fall in line with these laws and these natural processes, you can create whatever you want.
Hmm. So let's touch on some of the natural laws then. So can you explain them in layman's term what some of the natural laws are?
Yeah, so huge. So first of all, what a natural law is, right? So a natural law has three basic parts to it. A natural law is omnipresent, which means it's everywhere, there's nowhere it's not. A natural law is persistent and consistent, which means it keeps acting all of the time, it never stops. And the third thing, and the most important thing, is that natural laws are non-judgmental. In other words, they don't care if you like them or don't like them. They don't care what you think about them. So you can think about gravity for a second. Gravity is kind of a natural law, right? Gravity is everywhere in the universe. There's nowhere it's not. It changes its force based on what it's associated with in the universe, but it's a law across the universe. Now, gravity around Earth is persistent and consistent. It never stops acting. It's not like gravity turns off at night and then comes back on in the morning again. It's all the time, right? But here's the most important thing is gravity doesn't care what you think about it. Gravity doesn't care if you like it or don't like it. You could be a gravity scientist. If you trip on a banana peel, you're still going to fall down, right?
Mhm.
You can know nothing about gravity, slip on a banana peel, you're still going to fall down. Gravity is just going to keep doing what gravity always does. But here's the important thing to realize is that gravity is required for, think about this for a second. Gravity is required for both building bones and breaking bones, right? So on Earth, when people have thin bones, what do? They go exercise, right? They do weight bearing activities, they lift weights so that their bones get thicker. Because if you go to space, gravity is less, bones get thinner. So around Earth, humans, the way our physiology is set up, gravity is required for building bones. However, if you're in space and you trip on a banana peel, you just float away, right? On Earth, if you flip on a banana peel, you fall on the ground, you might break a bone. So gravity is actually required for both building bones and breaking bones. So what's the only difference between those two things? Like, why would you build bones and not break bones or other way around? It's choice. It's really how we choose to use gravity. If we choose to use gravity to build bones, we'll get thicker bones. If we choose to step on a banana peel, I know we don't make that conscious choice, but kind of thing, we'll actually break bones. And this is how all natural laws work. They're all about choice. Every law just is acting all the time. It doesn't care what you think about it. So the first law is the law of more life. Law of more life states that the universe is always moving towards more evolution and more growth. If you look at nature, nature is always growing. If humans don't get in the way, plants will just keep growing. If you weren't mowing your grass, it would just keep growing. Animals would just keep populating. If humans didn't get in the way of it, nature would just keep doing what nature does. It would just keep growing all the time. So everything is always growing in our own life. But here's the thing, what are you choosing to focus on in your life? Because what you choose to focus on will grow more. So you can choose to break bones or build bones, or you can choose to break your life or build your life. But the law of more life doesn't care what it grows. It's going to grow what you pay attention to, what you focus on. That's the primary, what we call law of more life. And so you have to realize from a manifestation perspective, and a lot of people talk about this, what you focus on, you create more of in your life, but it's actually following a law by doing that. One of the other primary laws that we like to talk about a lot is the law of polarity. And this is a real mind bender for people. So law of polarity states that everything is created as a whole. If you look out in nature, you see whole trees. You don't see half trees growing. You don't see half squirrels running around. You don't see half fish swimming, right? Everything is created as a whole. Our human mind, though, can see things in fractions. We could see like a tree kind of cut in half and go, now it's only a half a tree. It's still actually a whole tree. It's a whole half a tree now. It still has a top and a bottom, a left and a right, and an inside and outside. Makes it whole. So, right, so everything in nature is always whole, but it always has complementary opposites contained within that whole, a left and a right, a top and a bottom, an inside and an outside. And that's exactly how it works in life too. So here's like one of the mind-bendy things when we work with people, especially around money, actually, Jen. When we help people work with money and people say, listen, I don't have the money to do something, I say, well, then you must have the money. If you don't think you have the money, you must have the money because it's law of polarity. You cannot have one side without the opposite of the side. So if you don't think you have it, you must have it. It's just not showing up in the form that you want it to. And then you help people
Interesting.
unlock the form that they actually need it in, but it must be there. It must be there. And what's happening is their soma, their nervous system, is actually creating what we call a scotoma and creating a blind spot or blocking out the form that it's actually in. And for them, they perceive then they have lack. But the law of polarity always says that everything is a whole. So whatever you think you don't have, you must have.
I love that you're sharing the laws here because I think it's so easy for people to think of manifestation as woo. And I often describe it that way just because it's fun, it's playful to me, but so many people think it's just a woo fluff
Right?
thing. But when you can distill it back to the laws of why these things are the way they are, you can't ignore a law, right?
Correct.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it doesn't care if you try to. Because
no.
the law is just going to keep doing what it does. So you can't opt out of them is the thing. You're always choosing to use them in some way,
Mhm.
whether that choice is conscious or unconscious. And so the law is always creating what it's creating in your life based on how you're choosing to use the law.
Mhm. And I love you just sharing that last one there because it made a part of me go, "Oh." Can you say it again exactly how you worded that last one? If you don't have it, then you must have it. Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
yeah. If you don't have it, then you must have it. And the more
Uh-huh.
you think you don't have it, the closer it actually is to you.
Yeah, and I like that, I could feel something in my body, like almost a resistance point. And you're talking to somebody here who loves manifestation and
Yeah.
loves all this stuff, but I could feel something in my body like what do you mean if I don't have it, I must have it? But I think the more I can chew on that and I want to journal on it later, I feel like there'll be a paradigm shift there. If your brain can grasp that, that's going to unlock a door to a whole lot of potential there.
Yeah. And again, this is one of the most mind bending laws because the thing is, it's like when we talk about your nervous system and somatic science, because our nervous system is based on prediction, right? We actually go through our lives not like convincing ourselves of things that are happening. Most people go through their lives validating what they already believe. Right. So we like to say that if you and I were walking down the street together, Jen, and we just met, so we don't really know how each other thinks about things in the world and that sort of stuff. But if we were going down the street together and we saw two people arguing on the street, then we would both make up different stories about why they're arguing. Right. And so if you're walking down with your spouse or your best friend or whatever it is, your parents, who probably have a bunch of different vantage points, like we'll make up different stories about why they're arguing. Now you might think that we're making up that story based on what we're seeing, but the thing is, we both made up that story before we actually saw the argument. Because the beliefs are actually wired into our physiology. They're wired into our nervous system and into our soma and into our body. And so we're always going through life predicting what we're going to see next. Now, if our nervous system is going to predict lack in a certain area, then it will see lack in a certain area. It won't see the whole story of it. It's kind of like the moon. Halfway through the month, the moon, when you see half a moon, right? Do we assume that the moon, like half the moon fell off? No,
Some people might, but yeah.
some people might, right? But we know the whole moon is there. We just can't see half of it because it's in shadow. That's how life is. There's always a whole moon. There's always, like, when you don't think you have money, you must have money because all the money has to be there. You're only seeing the lack side of the equation. You're not seeing the have side of the equation or the abundance side of the equation, but it must be there. It's got to be there because that's the law. We're just filtering it out because of our nervous system, how it works on prediction.
Yeah, so how do you peel that back then? How do you take somebody from that lack space to be able to see more of what's there?
Right. So what we do is we go into the soma. We do what we call sensation-based coaching. So what we really do is help people get into their body because if there's a tenet that we live by from the Upanishads, which says that what you cannot find in your own body, you will never find elsewhere. What you cannot find in your own body, you will never find elsewhere. Think about this. We're all going through life looking out at the outside world looking for stuff. But the fact is, we are living in our own laboratory. Our body is our own laboratory, and our body is essentially projecting out into the world what we're seeing go out in the world. What we are experiencing inside is always being projected outside. If we're experiencing a lot of tension and agitation and lack sensations internally, that's what we project outside. And then we see those conditions outside of ourselves. We'll see lack, we'll see agitation, we'll see frustration outside of ourselves if that's what we're experiencing internally. Again, you and I can be standing next to each other and talking to the same person or listening to the same thing, and you might see opportunity where I see lack. I might say, oh God, they have nothing for me to offer there. And you're like, what are you talking about? They just said this, this, and this. And it's because in my body, like I'm feeling tense, agitated. I have lax sensations in my body. So that's what I'm filtering out of it. And so a lot of people, a lot of coaches and experts really try to work on the cognitive filters when they work that. But the problem is that all of your cognitive filters are informed by what you feel and sense in your body. If you look at the hierarchy of the nervous system, it's just how it's wired. It's through our salience network, our interoceptive systems. Like there's a lot of the stuff that we talk about when we really nerd out on it, nerd out on the somatic science of it. So if you really want to change how someone perceives something, you have to teach them to consciously shift their sensory states in their bodies. You have to teach them to consciously change how their interoceptive or sense states are, because that's what's feeding information upward into their insula, into the cognitive centers of their brain that are filtering the world for them. So we actually help people shift from a sensation. We work with the sensations themselves, not the concept of the sensations, but the actual sensations. And we walk them through processes to actually shift and find the opposite of those sensations, law of polarity, and then help them rebuild patterns from underneath of the opposite sensations of the ones that are creating the life results that currently they don't want anymore.
That sounds fascinating. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of different rabbit holes you go down to deal with that. But can you give us an example of what one nuance would look like of that?
Yeah, when you experience lack, let's say, Jen, where do you feel something in your body and what does it feel like?
I think like a heavy feeling in my guts.
Okay, heavy in your gut. Okay, heavy in your gut. Now, we would do a whole bunch of stuff with that, to help actually deconstruct and kind of dissemble that pattern, because that's the root of actually a whole somatic pattern that you have, this heaviness in your gut. Is that what you said, heaviness in your gut?
Yeah.
Okay, now, so what's the opposite of heaviness for you?
Lightness.
Lightness. Okay, so right now in your body, where do you feel lightness?
Kind of up here. Like, I guess it would be like my upper chest.
Up in your upper chest. Okay,
Yeah.
so you just found the opposite of that lack pattern in your upper chest. So now if you focus a little bit more on the sensation of the lightness in your chest, and if we worked with that and we actually gave you some practices to empower you to work on building that sensation and focusing on it more and growing it, and then taking action from that place out in the world. Let me ask you this: when you're doing whatever it is that you're doing in your business activities, Jen, if you were to take action from heaviness in your gut compared to lightness in your chest, would your action be different?
100%. Any action in life in general coming from that place of that heaviness, yeah, it's hard to take action from that place.
Yeah. And the result you're going to get is actually going to mirror the heaviness in your gut. That's the result that you'll get. Will mirror the heaviness in your gut to reaffirm or validate the heaviness in your gut. Where if we actually help you to strengthen and create a new pattern from this lightness in your chest, and you actually start taking action from there, then the results will mirror the lightness in your chest. Because that's, again, what's trying to be validated, because that's the program that's running in your nervous system. And then you actually get more results in your life that are associated with the lightness in your chest rather than the heaviness in your gut. So that's kind of like basically how we work with things. We do a lot of kind of nuance and a lot of kind of mindful practices around those kinds of things to help people really rewire what's going on in their somatosensory systems.
I love that. And I love bringing in, like you touched on at the beginning, Western medicine. We're kind of like, yeah, we try to fix people, but oftentimes we're just kind of fixing the symptoms of stuff.
Right.
But when we're going into all these different areas, you're kind of going back to the root. You're going back to probably dealing with somatic stuff like this. You are eliminating future illnesses just because you're learning to move stuff around in your body before it becomes an illness, before it gets to that disease point in your body.
Absolutely, 100%, because your cells are remanifesting themselves all of the time. Right. And when we shed, there's something called apoptosis, where you actually shed like millions of cells every day. Every day, millions of your body cells die every single day and then are replaced. Right. So every 2 weeks, you have new skin. essentially. When people like ask me how old I am, I say, what part of myself are you asking about? Right? Because like
Yeah.
I'm certainly, you might say chronologically, I'm a certain age, but there's nothing in this physical form that nearly represents what I was when I was born.
Mhm.
Right? My body is all new since then. So you have to ask, well, what part of my body? You get a new liver every 3 to 6 months, essentially, your skin every 2 weeks, right? Your body's always manifesting, remanifesting itself. But
Mhm.
to your point, like where you're focusing on internally, the processes going on internally most of the time will guide what direction your body's remanifesting itself in. And then that extends itself again into money, into relationships, into everything in your life.
Yeah. I feel like there are so many different ways this conversation can go, but I kind of want to take it towards your book because you have co-authored a book. Is it with your wife that you've
Yeah, my
co-authored this
wife,
book?
Ani. Yep. Mhm.
Okay. So Manifestation for Dummies. I think it's fascinating. Could you just share a little bit about your book here?
Oh, I would love to. And it's actually a really great story, too. We actually manifested writing Manifestation for Dummies. I mean, part of the fun story around this is when we got the idea to write Manifestation for Dummies, actually, it was Ani's idea one day. She was like, we should write Manifestation for Dummies. We looked at each other. We said, that has to have been written, right? And so we went to the Dummies, like we searched it, we couldn't find it anywhere. And through contact, we actually were able to get in touch with a Dummies editor. And when we reached out to them, they got back to us and said, we're actually actively right now looking for authors to write Manifestation for Dummies.
No way.
And so there's just one of these synchronicities, right? So I love like talking about the science and the somatic science of synchronicities and those. We talk about a lot of that in the book, actually. Writing the book, we talk about the science of manifestation, the physiological science of manifestation in the book. We talk about the natural laws. We go pretty deep into the natural laws. There's a whole part on that. And then we have a section on manifesting health, a section on manifesting relationships, and a section on manifesting wealth in the book. If you've ever read Dummies books, they're reference guides. So you can flip to different parts. You don't have to read it from front to back. You can actually flip to different parts and get what you need out of it and then take action in the world. And so we wrote it in this really modular style. And it's really fantastic. And we filled it up again with somatic science, with somatic practices, different practices you can do, such as like the one I was just describing to you. We have those kinds of practices. We have movement practices, mindfulness practices, breath practices in the book as well to help foster manifestation. So we really kind of like to think about it as a really practical, grounded, useful, and kind of semi-comprehensive guide to manifestation that we're just super excited about.
That is really fun. I can think back to the Dummies books back from when I was in high school. Like they've
Yeah.
just always been around in my life, right? So when I saw that, I was like, oh man, it actually is part of the series. So I thought that was really cool. So
Yeah.
where can listeners reach out and get a copy of the book? Is it out now?
Yes, it's on pre-order right now. It's coming out. It'll be released on July the 7th, 2026. And you can just go to somaticcoachingacademy.com and find it right there. And you can order it right through the website. You can also go to Amazon and Barnes & Noble and any of those places and order as well. But if you come through our website and get it, there's a whole bunch of bonuses you get as well. So you get like our manifestation morning routine bonus. You get Ani's playlist, manifestation playlist. There's a lot of bonuses you get if you come to the website and get it.
Okay, I will make sure I link the website in the show notes here. But before I let you go, I want you to share what you think your biggest piece of advice would be for someone to go out and create a life they love.
So my biggest piece of advice, and I think one of the things that is missed most in manifestation practices is this. Oftentimes when we set an intention to create or manifest something different in our life, we have an idea in our mind that the universe is then going to help it just appear in our life. And really what happens is the universe doesn't typically bring us what we want. It typically brings us an opportunity to become the kind of person who can actually have what we want. Stop looking for just something to materialize out of thin air that you want to manifest and look to have show up an opportunity to become the kind of person who can have and hold the thing that you're intending to have and start from the feeling state. Practice feeling the way that you want to feel after you think manifests, but before it manifests. That's what actually helps you step into those opportunities that reveal themselves. That's I think one of the shortcuts that can help people manifest really what they want in their life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I will be linking all the fun places where people can find you in the show notes here. And thank you for joining me on the show and having this conversation today.
Cool. Thanks so much, Jen. Super fun. I'm so glad to be here.
Before you go, I know you've got some big dreams and desires of your own calling to you. I'd love for you to come hang out with me inside Manifestation Playground on School. It's free to join, and you'll get instant access to the Manifestation Vault and an amazing community of fellow manifestors. Come in, drop me a hello, share a win, or just quietly binge the tools, your pace, your vibe. Head to manifestationplayground.ca, and I'll see you in there.